Welcome to the In the Box with Alex Misho and Reece McDougall podcast. We'll give an introduction to the podcast and what our goals are. The first goal is we're going to seek to entertain people. We want people to listen and to be entertained, period. We also want to drive engagement and interest in hockey and hopefully teach our listeners a few things about the game. And lastly, we want to provide unique or non-consensus views. This is not Hockey Night in Canada. This is not NHL on TNT. And this is not Spittin' Chicklets. And we don't want to, our aim is not to take consensus views, multiply it by -1, and then hammer that point. But there is a monoculture in most of sports commentary and hockey especially. So we want to entertain, we want to drive engagement, and we want to provide unique views. That's it. Reece, you have anything else to add?
Yeah, we just want to. The main goal of us putting together this podcast was to teach people about the game. We talked about people in the stands. Either it's your girlfriend or your wife or maybe your kids in the stands and they don't know what they're talking about or they're very curious about the game, and just give them some facts, teach them what's up, and the culture of hockey as well to add along with that.
Yep, and that's a good point on the culture.
And to add on, we're not gonna be spitting chicklets. We got hockey in our mind. We're not gonna be talking about golf or what we did this weekend. We're gonna get down to this, the facts and the straight points. What we think is entertaining. What we think that you, the viewer, want to know and want to listen to. So.
Yep, absolutely.
Have fun with it,
Yep, and to tag along that, when you talk about girlfriends and bringing friends to games and stuff, hockey is a fun sport to watch. It's fun to watch on TV. It's fun to watch in person. I have family members that, have never watched hockey, have never played hockey, but we always have a blast when we go to the live games in town. It's a great sport. So I guess we'll get, as they say, we'll get right into it.
Right on. What's the first thing we got on the agenda right now?
The first thing to cover is this Bruins and Mitchell Miller controversy. And I'm going to start out by just giving the timeline, okay? So Friday, the Bruins sign 20-year-old defenseman Mitchell Miller. This showed up on my plate Saturday night while watching Hockey Night in Canada. Each panel during the game had a long segment on this signing. And the reason was that it became known when Miller was 13 or 14, he bullied a disabled kid and was convicted for his actions. So clearly it was pretty serious. And each panel talked of how the signing was a bad look and was deeply troubling. And, they really blew this thing up. They made it sound apocalyptic. Then Gary Bettman, the NHL commissioner, said at a press conference that Miller was not allowed in the NHL. He continued on, but essentially said that the NHL wasn't consulted about the decision to sign Miller and that he wasn't eligible to play in the NHL. Just right there, that was strange to me because what does every player need to get approved by Gary Bettman to play in the NHL? And I actually saw that the Players Association clapped back at Bettman. That whole thing was very strange to me. Now, here we are on Monday, and the Bruins have rescinded his contract, and management put out a bunch of statements saying, how sorry they were and they should have looked into it more. And this is not the brand or culture they're trying to build. So that's the backstory. And I have a couple points to hit on this. The first point is that I think all of us need to cool it and understand that we have a serious problem at the societal level with determining who gets to redeem themselves. Now, we all have done or have witnessed or at least have firsthand knowledge of people that we know to be truly good and just people doing bad things, terrible things. I, Reece too, were once 13-year-old boys. I've witnessed and experienced the group dynamics at play. And I know people who got caught up in the moment and made extremely poor decisions, but absolutely are worthy of not just a second chance, right? A lot of the panels and a lot of the discussion were talking about a second chance. But they're not, good people are not just worthy of a second chance, but of having some past actions expunged from their schema of today and the future. Ultimately, okay, in cases like this, all of us are trying to determine whether this person is truly evil or corrupt to their core. And there are certainly people that fit this bill. But the default assumption should not be that people are permanently corrupt from an incident. And before I keep going, it's important to note that I don't know everything that happened with this Miller kid, okay? I know that Bruins management doesn't know. And certainly the commentators and the journalists don't know. And those people are typically the people that we outsource, our lacking of information to go and gather for us and to bring us the facts. But I think we all are at the point where we don't trust these people anymore. There are certainly some forces at play in the background that drive the certain facts to be gathered and others to be negated or left in the dust. So the second point is that if, I'm obsessed with looking at the language people use. And in this case, if you look at the language from the Bruins to the journalists and commentators to the fans on Twitter, we've reached escape velocity. Again, we're all working with incomplete information. None of us were best friends with Miller. None of us were involved in the incident. None of us were played on his team or were at the school or are part of his family, okay? People are talking as if this kid should be, slammed with a life sentence in state pen. And honestly, as I move through this, the way people are talking, that might be his best option. Like how crazy this has gotten. It might be worth him just going, you know what, throw me in Rikers Island. I'll just do that. Okay? When we need to think of redemption, and when we think of redemption, we ought to think of the messaging that unhinged language sends to other young guys. But let's start with Miller, okay? At this point, I'm thinking he should get addicted to fentanyl or become a serial rapist or commit armed robberies. Because if there is no path to redemption, then once you break the line, you might as well completely give up and throw in the towel. Right? And what can he do now? Right? The way people are talking is if this is some monster. Like I said earlier, he should be slammed with a life sentence. So what exactly can he do now, right? From something that he did as a teenager, he can't go to the NHL. Can he even work a white-collar job? Can he work for an accounting firm? Or is that past action, not part of an accounting firm's culture and the brand they're trying to build? Should he just cut concrete for the rest of his life? Not to say that that's a bad option, but for a guy who has the talent and skill to go to the NHL and clearly has geared his whole life to making the NHL, standing hunched over for 10 to 12 hours a day for pretty much 6 months straight out of the year is going to be quite a turnaround. Maybe it's only just for him to become homeless and a habitual meth addict user, and then maybe anybody will give a shit about him again. The third point is that taking a break from what I've just said, I don't know about you guys, but I'm exhausted. Okay, from having to deal with these sorts of things. On a Saturday night, when I turn on Hockey Night in Canada, I just want to be tuned out of everything. I want to be operating at the least amount of brain cells that I have to. Okay?
I want to sit back and have a beer and watch some hockey.
Correct. I want to enter the bubble. I want to be zonked out. I want to be, screaming and sweating as I watch some guys play hockey on the screen. I want to hear about the Senators' ownership issues. I want to hear about Kucherov being on pace for 136 points this season. I absolutely do not want to have to think about something as serious as this Miller deal. Do you feel that way at all, Reece?
Yeah, absolutely. So this past week, for an example, this past week, I've been watching all these games, all these really entertaining games. I sat down with my little cousins, 6-year-old, 9-year-old, and 12-year-old, and every time we eat dinner at 6 o'clock, they're begging me to watch hockey with them. Now, that might be because they can get to stay up later because they get to watch hockey with their older cousin, but I feel like they're actually... that's like one of the things that they look forward to in the day. Now, to say that they're 6, 9, and 12 years old, they're not going to really appreciate that. But just take in consideration, other families that are older, and then they see this Cam Neely guy on the screen talking about this bullshit, man. Like no one really cares. We just want to watch some hockey. It really shouldn't matter at this point. Especially something that happened when you were 14 years old, and that he's came out and apologized to the child or the person that he bullied. He's came out and apologized years ago.
Yeah, well that hits on what I said. We're all working with incomplete information, and like you said, even the people that do care, okay. Here's the point. They shouldn't care. Period. You should not care. Okay? Let management, let everything behind the scenes handle this and deliver to our TV screens hockey. That's it. That's all I want to watch.
Yeah. And this is part of the culture thing that I would like to get into, like teaching people about the hockey culture is like it's not like cut and dry. Like this ain't T-ball, man. This is hockey. Like growing up throughout the years playing Pee-wees, Adams, all these younger leagues when you're like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up till high school leagues, you're with these group of kids for 10 plus years, 12 years. And you guys bicker back and forth. You're almost like a family. And these sorts of things happen. I mean, Alex,
well, hold on. I don't think the kid that he bullied or whatever was part of his hockey team.
No, he wasn't part of the hockey team.
Okay.
But you know,
it is a good,
right?
Absolutely, it is a good point, because what you're trying to say is that if you looked at every interaction that say a high school or middle school hockey team has throughout an entire year, there's some crazy shit that happens that doesn't look good, and is definitely a lot of times could be considered bullying.
And and I really didn't want to go on this super tangent, but I guess it doesn't matter at this point. But the whole bullying thing, the whole the lollipop in the toilet, that's messed up, man.
Yes.
All right. And I don't know the whole parameter, the whole thing going on, like what happened. Like he was forced to eat that thing, or they were like, dude, here, eat this open wrapped, or this opened lollipop that we just found. I don't know. Why would you eat a lollipop that's unwrapped? I don't know, but I'm not blaming the victim on this one, but like that, I'm saying that's fucked up. That's a fucked up prank, or messed up prank to do. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and here's what I think we're both thinking. We're not, and I'm definitely not trying to claim that Miller is a great guy.
Yeah.
Or that, he is not actually just a bad dude, a bad person, and that's how he's always going to be. I'm not claiming any of those things. I'm just saying that with incomplete information and the way people are talking, that like I said, we've reached escape velocity. We're gone. We're so far out there, and I think that is dangerous, and I think that it's just not a good deal.
Well, it's gonna sizzle down to a point where Connor McDavid, look at him this past summer. Some guys were taking videos of him with another girl walking in I think it was Edmonton, in like some bar district, and they're like, ooh, like, is Connor cheating on his wife? And then
Yeah.
we gonna kick Connor McDavid out for cheating on his wife? I don't think so. It's gonna boil down to that point. It's gonna come to that point.
No, and you're right, because there are, and some people have commented on this, how like there are multiple standards at work, particularly in the NHL. Okay, which means that there are people in the NHL who have histories of crime or immoral acts, and yet that is not brought to our table. Right, there's 30 guys on each team, times 32. Say there's 1,000 players that come through the NHL each year. We don't get a full background check on all of them, and everybody's dirty past is not brought to our table to consider.
Yeah.
And yet, in this case, we're. I don't know. We're so far in the weeds. It's troubling. And to kind of close this segment out, I think we can move on.
Yeah.
The last point that I want to make, okay, is that we need to remember that Bruins management and Gary Bettman are not actually in the business of seriously thinking about the things that I've laid out and we've just discussed. They are in the business of selling tickets.
Yep, absolutely.
And for as heartbroken, okay, quote, heartbroken, as management and everyone is claiming, the Bruins will turn this fiasco into a profit event. Just wait 2 weeks or 2 months, and we will see the Bruins and the NHL launch this big anti-bullying parade, and Bergeron will be filmed doing presentations and giving speeches to young kids about bullying and leadership, and the fan bases are gonna just feel so soft and cozy, and they're gonna buy tickets. And when these things happen, part of the thinking, at least in my head, is that like the reason that such a big deal is made out of this is precisely to capture this profit event. Like why would you ever waste this opportunity? Why would you push it under the rug and handle it behind the scenes like we want to happen as pure hockey fans? Why would they do that when they can be in the news for a couple weeks here, and actually for the whole season and probably for the next couple of years, everybody's going to remember this event, and the Bruins are going to make a ton of money. So is the NHL. It's very murky, and I think most people don't consider that. Anyways, that closes up that section. Sorry to come in swinging like that.
Oh no, dude! I knew that was gonna go down a rabbit hole, and we were gonna go down that rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah.
I like to just add my little thing to it too to end it. I think we should just, it was fucking 6 years ago. People change for sure. So the kid's worked hard his whole life to get into the NHL. It's one of the most competitive. It's a very competitive job, if you will. He's worked his whole life to get in there. Give him a second shot. He's apologized to the kid. Give him a shot.
People whose main goal is making it to the NHL they don't have the time to be building skills in other areas and coming up with a backup plan. So. Yeah. I think you're right, and I don't know if he should or shouldn't be in the NHL. The matter of the fact is, at this point, I don't think there's a psychological, from the mass. I don't think there's a psychological shift that could happen where people would be okay with him being in the NHL or any teammates allowing him. And I think that's unfortunate, again, because none of us actually know the nitty-gritty details. So, anyways, moving on. What's on your plate? Or you want me to riff?
No, so, I was just going to go over a couple fights there, but we can go. I think we should say that for last. I really saw a fight on the 3rd of November that was pretty good. It was pretty solid, but we can let's go dive into a few other your spiels there, like the Leafs.
Right.
I like the Leafs because they've been.
Yeah. Okay.
The Leafs have been. The Leafs are one of my favorite teams to watch, and Leafs fans are one of my favorite fan bases in the NHL because they lose every single first round in the playoffs. I could look it up right now to see how many first rounds they've lost in the playoffs, but it's just gotten so bad that the Leafs, after the Leafs lose, they just throw on an Oilers jersey or a Flames jersey, and they're like, let's go. Not an American team. That's what I'm not rooting for an American team, at least.
Yeah, no. Okay, to be fair, I have not watched the Leafs play one game this season, but it somehow has made its way to my plate that the Leafs are off to yet again another poor start. And here's part of the education part of this podcast. Okay, the Leafs are an original 6 team to the NHL, right? When I think of the mecca of hockey, I think of Montreal, because Montreal has a crazy number of Stanley Cups that probably will never be beaten or surpassed by any other team. And hockey is I think at least it originated, from French Canada, right? So I always think of Montreal as the mecca of hockey. But Toronto is really, you could call it a second Mecca, but it's right there with Montreal. And the point is that we all want to see Toronto do good because they have such a history and they have sucked for so long. But I want to say something to the Leafs fan base, okay, that they probably don't want to hear, but if they, just listen for a second and maybe consider later on, they will realize that this is the truth. The Leafs, with their current lineup, are never, ever going to win a Stanley Cup. And this goes back to last year in the playoffs. Sheldon Keefe is not a hockey guy. You just look at him. He's never going to bring your team a cup. He's never going to deliver you guys to victory. You look at him and you can just tell he's not a serious dude. And I saw a video from last week of Mitch Marner talking about, Sheldon's a great guy and he's done a lot for the team. That's great. And that's probably what you want to hear from your players. But we need to look at this as objective observers and people who want to see the Leafs do good. Sheldon Keefe's not your guy. The second point, and this is the bigger point, Auston Mathews is just an unserious dude when it comes to hockey. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, he and going back to the playoffs, I put my bet on the Flames, and I felt very comfortable with that. I had so much fun watching the Flames play hockey because it was the slickest hockey I've ever seen played. But there was one game that I watched of the Avalanche pretty early on in the playoffs, and I saw the look on what's his name?
The Flames coach?
No, the Avalanche.
Avalanche, Nathan MacKinnon.
Yes, yep. Nathan MacKinnon. I saw the look on his face, and I had tingles up my back because I went, "Oh shit, that this guy is going to will his team to victory," and that's what happened. Nathan MacKinnon is a serious hockey player. He's a serious man about this business of winning. Auston Mathews, I think, just wants to be famous. Honestly, if you gave him the option to, hey, you can win the Stanley Cup this year, but you can never have an Instagram account ever again, I think at a minimum there would be serious consideration. And ultimately, I think he would say, I'll just take my chances winning the cup down the road, right? When you look at his Instagram, it's with the arm tattoos and the weird haircuts and how stylish his clothes are. And this is the big one. Whenever I see a guy like this wearing one of those freaking fanny packs that you put, over your shoulder and you wear it across your chest, that guy is never ever going to be a winner. Okay, when you look at Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby's Instagram, and these guys, you can tell they just want to win hockey games. They love the game, and Connor McDavid eventually will win a cup. I know it for sure because he will, and he has put the entire team on his back to win games. Auston Mathews is not that guy. Okay? The second point is that the way the Leafs have built their team is moronic. Mitch Marner is, and the same with Auston too, these guys are not top-tier leaders. You know who a top-tier leader is? A random guy like Blake Wheeler. Okay? Blake Wheeler isn't friends with Justin Bieber. He's not going to these big parties in LA. He's not even putting up 100 points a year. But that you look at him too on the bench, and he's captained many teams. he is a leader. He's a winner. And he doesn't have much of a personality that we know about. Same thing with Sidney Crosby, right? We don't hear about Sidney, down in Barbados with Tyga, partying his balls off.
Yeah.
Okay? That's all shit we hear about Auston Mathews. But the point is that Mitch Marner, because Auston Mathews is the franchise player and he's just not a serious dude, Mitch Marner has been brought to this level of having to fill that void. And that is not a void that a guy with Mitch Marner's disposition is fit for. You know what Mitch Marner is fit for? Being a Jake Gensel from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Jake Gensel is an unreal player. Seriously. If he didn't play on the same line or on the same team with Sidney Crosby, everybody would know his name because he's phenomenal. But you know what? Sidney Crosby carries all the weight. And that allows a guy like Jake Gensel to reach their maximum potential. And I think that's sort of the case that, or that's the position that Mitch Marner should be in. He should have a guy above him that is, teaching the rest of the team how to be serious hockey players, setting the tone. And Mitch Marner should just be on the ice, grinding out, doing his best work. So hockey players, especially young guns, should, very quickly realize and totally accept that they are never going to be as famous as NBA or NFL players at all.
Which sucks to hear. As a hockey fan, you don't want to hear that. And that's not true. Like, hockey is the superior sport.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Agree with that.
But it just culturally, they're never going to reach that limit. But if you can accept that and realize that that's not an aim, that's in the plane of targets, then everything's golden, because now you are a success-driven player, and that's what makes great teams. That's what'll get you a Stanley Cup.
I have some key things to point out. I got some points here for the Leafs. All right. I have a prediction. I think they're going to break the streak this year, and they're going to finally get past the first round. Second round? Who knows? Because I could go off a list of... It's November hockey right now, so it's very hard to tell who is actually playing actual hockey and who's just, we have a double header. And the next day, maybe we should save it for the better. We should save our energy for the better team. And so let's lose against, the Montreal Canadiens, but then let's go beat, the Vegas Knights. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well,
go ahead.
November hockey's early, and I think the point to make here is that. Was it 2018 or 19 when the St. Louis Blues won the Cup? Okay. And if people remember, they were literally the worst team by points. Was it in November? Was it in January? They crawled out of the basement like the crypt keeper and went on to win the damn cup. So it is true that, we're early and it's hard to make some of these calls. That's a pretty big bet, though, that the Leafs are going to make. Because here's the thing. If they make it through the second round, it's almost worse for the entirety of the fan base and the organization. because they're going to keep holding on to this false hope that next season they could do it.
So what I saw on Saturday night's game with the Bruins, the Bruins came out. They played Thursday night. They won that game, and then they went to Toronto to play the Leafs. And I couldn't really make a decision on my prediction of who was going to win or not, because the Bruins were just on they're just on a hot streak right now. Even though Jim Montgomery's got that team locked down right now, fantastically, like the team is just solid. But it was just hard to say because the Leafs have been they're doing all right. They're doing all right in their division. It's not terrible, and they haven't, in my opinion, they haven't looked bad. But on Saturday night, they looked really good compared to they were keeping up with the Bruins, and honestly, that game was 0-2, and they won by 2. Because Brad Marchand got that penalty shot and got it in there. You give Brad Marchand a penalty shot, he's gonna put it in.
Yeah, he's an operator. He's been there and done that before. So
basically, I would say, and the Bruins are not good on a power play. Let's just put that out there right now. Every time they get a penalty, I'm like, whatever, good for them if they get one. But if he would have got just a penalty on that, and then the Bruins would have got on a power play, I don't think they would have scored, and the Leafs would have won 2-0, and Samson would have got a shutout for sure.
Huh. That's an interesting thought. I wonder, they should give him the option. You want a penalty shot, or do you want a 2-minute power play?
Maybe that would work. Who knows? I'd definitely take a penalty shot.
Yeah, there are teams that go 0 for 30 on the power play, and you're thinking, you know what? They, like in football, some teams should be able to just decline the penalty.
Yeah. That's a good idea to think it. I never thought of that before. But all in all, the Leafs look good on Saturday. If they can keep up and battle, like win those little battles in the corners, and they played really defensively too, and they may have even, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they looked at some footage from Boston's Thursday game. And looked at that and was like, you know what, I forgot who they played. Who did they play?
Isn't it crazy to hear about teams like watching footage and realizing that we never did that in high school hockey?
Yeah. That is pretty wild. I mean, we'd have
what kind of superpower advantage would we have had if we could have
absolutely. And like if we had some decent coaches that would have been like, you know what, these people are doing this, probably we should do this to fix what they're doing and beating us. Like, there was a reason why Brewer Maine beat Presque Isle hockey like every single damn time we went down there. It's because of footage. But they played the Rangers, and the Rangers, it was the Penguins, actually, on November 1st. They
Correction.
Penguins. As I was. Plugged up the neutral zone against the Bruins very well, and that's why the Penguins got some turnovers there, and eventually went up in a 3-goal lead there, and unfortunately to the Penguins, they just blew a lead there, but I think that's what the Leafs did, man. They looked at that footage and they're like, you know what, we need to plug up the neutral zone against the Bruins, and that's how we're going to beat them. And that's exactly what they did. So to get off that, I think the Leafs got a shot as long as they keep doing what they're doing. Still early in the season, though.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to have to disagree with you. For as long as Sheldon Keefe is still the coach of that team, they have zero shot in my books.
I'm not too familiar with Sheldon Keene. I mean,
Keith.
Sheldon Keefe. See, that's exactly,
Yeah.
How many coaches have the Leafs gone through in the past, 10 years, though?
They've gone through a lot. In the unfortunate cases, they've also, they've certain coaches, who are great coaches, all-star coaches, will forever be remembered as great coaches. At the end of their careers, went to coach the Leafs and then had to, actually close out the chapter of their coaching in the NHL by fading off into oblivion, right? By coaching the Leafs. I'm thinking of Mike Babcock, particularly. What a great coach. Goes to coach the Leafs, pretty much has zero success. And the good part about it is most people don't even remember that. They just remember the unreal run he had in Detroit. So, yeah, maybe it isn't the coaching. If Babcock couldn't do it, they'll need to get Jesus Christ to coach them.
That's been like a big part of some teams is management. They'll take a look at the team. They're like, why aren't we winning any cups? They'll take apparently in the Bruins management. Sorry, I'm a Bruins fan, so I mostly keep up with the Bruins quite a bit. But you take a look at the Bruins management over the past since the 80s. I mean,
whoa.
You look at the management, I guess, and it's just they're just looking for the cash cow, apparently, because they're like, fuck, this coach sucks. Maybe we, the players aren't bad. The players can't be that bad. It's got to be the coach, or it's got to be the offensive coach. Now, for the past couple of years for the Bruins, it's definitely the power play, the guy who's running the power play. But, firing Claude Julien, maybe not the right decision. I think, and that goes for all these teams that just fire this coach. Like, Claude Julien's gotten the Bruins most of their cups in the past 20 years, or since he coached. He got them in 2011, 2013. I'm mistaken. He's got 2 cups. And Bruce Cassidy got it in 2019. I may be wrong on that, but...
Well, what about the fights? You said you wanted to talk about fights?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the hockey culture, right? I think that that the media, if you will, doesn't like to portray hockey as a violence. They don't want to. The NHL specifically has moved away from the violence of hockey. I think that it's a misconception that fighting in hockey is because it's just a violent sport. No. If you go to the Frederic fight with Gaudreau, it was the Flyers versus the Bruins, Bruins versus the Rangers, and it was towards the end of the period. Gaudreau hit Frederic, clean hit, but it was a big hit. Knocked him on his butt. Big hit. All that is just a bunch of guys going to protect his teammate. That's all that is. Hey man, you gonna do that to my buddy? You gonna do that to my friend again? And then Gaudreau comes back and is like, yeah, I'm gonna do that again. Screw you, dude. And then they just go at it. And then they're done. And then they go to the box. And then they serve their 5 minutes and they go back to the penalty box. No one holds a grudge in hockey like that. I mean, I don't. I never did, really.
Yeah.
It's only the players like, I want to say, Evander Kane, or the people against Evander Kane or the Brad Marchand that just are problem problems in the league.
Yes. Okay, that is a point I'm going to hit on. Is you are correct. Paradoxically, okay, the sport at large has been trying to get rid of fighting, and they're doing it. And the reason is because, generally you just don't want people getting punched in the face. And second is, like at some point somebody's going to literally die on the ice, either from getting punched in the head or more likely slamming their head on the ice without their helmet. Right?
Yeah.
However, the paradoxical part is, from my experience, being in a town with a USHL team, and being around newbie fans, is that fans love fighting. And like you were saying, fighting is a very important part of the game, because when you're playing a sport where guys are flying around at 20 plus miles an hour and can go and hit other people at that speed, and God knows at what angle, especially the distance away from the board, serious injuries can be done if people aren't kept in line. And fighting is that important balance. Are you going to take a risky run at a guy if you know that you run the risk of somebody else jumping you? You're going to get in a fight, and maybe you don't get knocked out, which would be a blow to your own development, because now you're out of the lineup, but also your ego, because you just got knocked out, and those videos are going to be for forever. Or you could just lose the fight straight up, get beat up without getting knocked out. Now you've embarrassed yourself. So there's certainly an important balance. It definitely is scary to me, though, when I see guys, historically, when they were able to take off their helmets, which was the honorable thing to do for two great fighters in the league. Because man, just dropping down, not even, from a height or getting thrown, being out cold, you're going to slam your head on the ice, man, and somebody is going to die. Just a couple of years ago, Ovechkin got in a fight with, I forget his name, he was another Russian on the Hurricanes, and Ovechkin KO'd him. Literally knocked him out cold with a punch, and he fell to the ice, and he hit his head a little bit, but fortunately I think Ovechkin still had a grab of his jersey, so he kind of cushioned his fall a bit. But that's risking serious summary injuries.
That's a good point to put there. I mean, I didn't even think about that. Like, I've never even thought about that, and I've been playing the game for years. But, I just thought, like, you would assume that risk if you were going to play hockey. That's the thing. You assume that risk of... I mean, I didn't even play... I played, like, pretty much my whole high school career without elbow pads, because I just thought they were uncomfortable. You just assume that risk. Probably a really dumb idea, but you know what? I could dangle people like it was none other, because I didn't have the restriction of the movement with the elbow pad, man.
Hey, are you saying I could have been the first 200-point club member had I just ditched the stupid-ass elbow pads?
Absolutely. No.
Oh my God, what was I thinking? Yeah, no, that's pretty funny. That's crazy.
Just to make that point clear, like, the fighting is not because people just want to go fight. It's because if you look at a game and a player goes and shoves his stick in the goal when the goalie's got the puck covered on the ground, and everyone's piled up in the crease, and there's that dickhead that just shoves his stick in the goalie's, in his neck or in his sternum or in his glove, you're going to see all the defensemen just go up to that guy and just swarm him. And then eventually maybe something will happen, but most of the time it doesn't nowadays. Like I said, the NHL is trying to get rid of it. But you're trying to protect your goalie.
Well, the other part of it is that the NHL is totally a game of speed, and these guys are just all elite hockey players, top tier. And if you're going to be a tough guy fighter, most of the good fighters were not, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, guys, but they were not top tier players. There were plenty of more skilled people in the AHL, but they didn't get to the league. And by the way, I'm saying this is not a good or bad thing. This is just the case of things that they never got to the league because these guys literally served a purpose on the team. The term enforcer comes from these guys because that it didn't matter if, they got 2 points a season and the next worst guy had 12 points, or some big difference where on paper you'd go, yeah, send his ass down to the minors and get the top guy from the minors up. No, those guys certainly had a role on the team. And now, like you're saying, you don't see as much fights, you don't see as much brutality because there quite simply is no room for guys like that. If you're a guy who's, if we're talking NHL 2K18 here, if you're a guy who has a rating of, 65 as far as shots, accuracy, speed, all that crap goes, you're in today's game. If there's a team with a player like that on the ice, it is essentially a 5-on-4. So, but yeah.
I don't know about you, but do you feel that Milan Lucic is
okay?
Is
that is a phenomenal point, Reece. There are a handful of players that are almost like Neanderthals walking around the streets today. They're from a time past. Yet the game has still honored them, and somehow they've been able to adapt a little bit. And Milan Lucic is absolutely what I'm talking about.
It was he's almost like Chara retired this year, and he was that. He's exactly the player that we're talking about. I
don't know, because when Chara was a circus freak, that's what he was.
Yeah,
if you made Chara into a 5'11" dude, would he still be the Chara that we know him as?
No, absolutely not.
He might be. I'm just saying he was 6'9", or maybe he was taller. He was a genetic freak. That was his purpose. Here's the thing, okay? They allowed Chara to have a longer stick than anybody else. Like, there's a limit to how tall your stick can be, and yet they gave him an extension.
Huh.
He had several advantages. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, he was a tough guy.
And props to anyone that went up against him. Holy cow.
Props, or are we thinking crazy?
Yeah. You do got to be crazy to go up against that guy. Like, hey, you touched my goalie? Yeah, man, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. It won't happen again. Won't happen again. The guy was over 7 feet on his skates.
Yeah.
He was a monster.
Man.
Monster.
Yeah, imagine getting on the ice and seeing him on the other side in warm-ups. I mean, it's like the scene from 300 where they unchain that one dude and Leonidas he runs up and stabs him in the neck or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
But yeah, Leon, the thing I was getting on with Lucic was you saw him in the playoffs last year with the Flames, and every time I'd see it, I love watching him play because he can put pucks in the net, but it's so funny watching him skate because he doesn't skate normal, and he doesn't his pads, I don't know, he just looks like this brawler, man, with his pads, and he's got no face guard because he doesn't have to wear a face guard. He just looks like he's there to just mess people up, dude. And that goes into what you said about, like, there's just the enforcer, and like they're getting away. Like, you don't need an enforcer, you need more of a guy who licks people's faces like Brad Marchand that just draws penalties.
Yep. No. When you see Lucic out there, like you're saying, you always notice when he's on the ice, because there's some guy running across the blue lines, and you're thinking, what is this guy doing out here? Do they not have the tunnel secured? Did some guy just jump down from after he got a bag of popcorn from the stands and went and put some gear on, and all of a sudden ended up on the fourth line? Like, yeah.
That's exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, but he's a brawler, and that's why he's out there. And talk about his stride. That's correct. If I were, in the ultra scientific wing of sports and trying to figure out how to maximize these professionals, I would be doing slow-mo videos, 4K rewinds of Lucic skating, because the speed he can generate for the type of stride that he has and the type of body that he has is unreal. There is something physically, mechanistically going on in his skating that allows him to generate crazy power. It definitely is a lot of power, not a lot of speed. Yeah, Lucic.
Hopefully he ends up in the Hall of Fame. I'd love to see Lucic.
Yeah, for just being famous. Like, everybody knows Lucic, even though
I feel like everyone does. Everyone, he is a wide. I didn't know that he used to play for the Oilers before he played for the Flames.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have liked him more on the Flames or the Oilers, but
he's been around.
I kind of want to go into that too. I kind of want to talk about the Oilers right now.
Wait, you want to talk about the Oilers now, or you want to save it for next time?
We can save it for next time. Yeah, we're running a little late here.
Yeah, we're at an hour. I think are you still there?
Yeah.
Listeners? No, I mean listeners. Are listeners still there at an hour? So yeah, if you're still listening to this, go to our Patreon and send us some money, or we're going to stop doing this.
As Don Cherry said, I really need the money.
Did he really say that?
Yeah, when he got hired for the Colorado, was it the Rockies or the team before the Avalanche? No, it wasn't the Rockies.
He went and coached baseball? No, before the Avalanche, it was the Nordiques.
Yeah, he coached them. And they were like, "Why do you want to coach?" He's like, "I really need the money." So, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what the Leafs need to do, is stop looking at hockey coaches because they've had great success and just start looking at guys who need some money.
Exactly, yeah. Pick a few guys up in Europe. They could definitely use money. Some guy in Ukraine.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. Anyways, well, thanks for listening, y'all.
Yeah, don't. We got. If you guys want to make your input here on Twitter, we'll set up a Twitter, and we got an Instagram. So.
No shit, we do?
We do, or we will set up one.
Yeah. No, we're good.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Appreciate it.
Peace.